The next session is Digitalisation, Integration and the Reshaping of the Aerospace Sector, moderated by Daniel Dumbacher, Executive Director of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session on digitalization, integration, and reshaping of the aerospace sector. I'm Dan Dumbacher, the Executive Director of AIAA, the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, and I'm thrilled to be joined by two distinguished panelists. Amer Siddiqui, Director, Aerospace, Mubadala Investment Company, and Jay Little, Vice President, UAE and South Africa Customer and Account Management at Collins Aerospace. As everyone continues to touch upon, the past few months have tested our will in ways most of us never would have imagined. These challenges have affected our personal lives, our economic stability, the health of our loved ones, and the very fabric of the world that we know. Our industry has certainly faced both tragedies and complex challenges in the past, and without a doubt, nothing has ever looked like this. While the crisis continues to test our perseverance, personally, I have been overwhelmed and incredibly proud of the companies and organizations that have stepped up to apply their human ingenuity, caring, and resources to create human-centered solutions for the public health crisis of our time. As the largest technical society of nearly 30,000 aerospace professionals, AIAA serves a critical function to advance the industry no matter the challenge we are facing. We are driven by big ideas that inspire us and give us purpose, lead humanity beyond planet Earth to live, learn, and discover, redefine the second century of flight and its impact on our everyday lives, create the secure and connected world we have always dreamed. Our members are the leaders who work together every day to shape the future of aerospace. While these goals have not changed, the path forward has been impacted by this crisis. And now, 6 months into the crisis, it is appropriate for us to pause and gather our thoughts, data, and insights and begin discussing the key trends and impacts to the aerospace sector that we can be best strengthened to emerge in a post-COVID environment. Today's session will address a few of these areas, including what are major global trends driving consolidation moving into the post-COVID-19 world. How will digitization impact the aerospace sector? First, let me introduce our panelists. Amer Siddiqui is currently serving as the Director of Aerospace at Mubadala Investment Company, a role which he has held since 2017. Under his current role, Mr. Siddiqui is responsible for the aerospace portfolio's management and performance, as well as contributing and supporting and overseeing, managing, and executing the overall strategy of the aerospace unit. Prior to his current role, Mr. Siddiqui served as the Chief Financial Officer of Strata Manufacturing from 2011 to 2017, a composite aerostructures manufacturing company under the MIC portfolio. Prior to joining Mubadala, Mr. Siddiqui has held senior roles for some of the world's leading blue chip organizations, such as PricewaterhouseCoopers, Cable and Wireless PLC, Halifax Bank of Scotland PLC, and Dubai World, and brings with him over 20 years of experience across a wide section of industries and cross-border international jurisdictions. Mr. Siddiqui is a fellow with the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, and also holds a BA with honors, a degree in accounting and finance from the Kingston Business School in London. Also joining us this morning is Jay Little. Jay leads the customer and account management for Collins Aerospace in the Middle East and Africa. He is a key member of the company's global organization, which is focused on achieving the full potential of Collins Aerospace in the region. In addition to years of international experience, throughout his career, he has spent time working in engineering, business development, program management, and strategy. We obviously have two very capable and very distinguished guests with us today to help us look at these trends. There's a lot to cover today. Let's get this discussion started at the macro level right away. First, today, the first item we'll talk about is what are the major global trends driving consolidation in the aerospace and defense sector, and what does the growth trajectory look like in a post-COVID-19 world? Amer, let's start with you and get your thoughts on the topic.
Dan, thanks for the question. And firstly, it's great to be here today, and in somewhat unusual circumstances, but we're going through testing times. I'd like to address your question by taking a little bit of a different stance and maybe looking into the past. And let's go back into 2019, where we witnessed a relatively fragmented European market struggle, and we saw an element of consolidation occurring with the likes of Skyworks, Cobalt, Air, VLM going out of business, resulting in some consolidation. And at the time, Oliver Wyman had issued a market report where they anticipated further consolidation in the industry. That was 2019. So let's fast forward now into current time, current day, in a post-COVID environment. The implications of the global pandemic, as you touched on earlier, have been significant. We've not witnessed anything like this in the recent decades. The implications of SARS, MERS, 9/11, the global financial crisis, nothing has really impacted global economies as what we're seeing now. Some industries are more adversely impacted, ours being one of them. Aviation and aerospace has taken a bad hit. And just for the benefits of our audience, everything in our industry is linked to air traffic. And I know there's a lot of statistics out there, but I'd just like to maybe give a couple of examples. The global air traffic in July 2020 was 83% lower than July 2019. And that's just for 1 month. But if we start from when the pandemic first hit the scenes, we've seen a similar trend where the global air traffic has taken a massive drop. If we look forward, there's a lot of analysts who are predicting how long this is going to go on for. The real answer is no one really knows, but it implies that pre-COVID level air traffics are expected to be in the range of between 3 to 5 years from now. So if we take all of this into consideration and the implications of what we see, I think this is going to change the dynamics of the market, and we're going to see some more consolidation. I feel that M&A activity in the industry is going to be directed towards the delivery of new products, particularly in markets such as Asia and the Middle East. And that's mainly due to having availability of capacity as well as pent-up demand. I personally don't think mega mergers are going to be the theme. They're going to be less frequent, and acquisitions are going to be based on smaller targets. But I do think ultimately partnerships and joint ventures are going to replace or complement, if you like, M&A in some instances. They offer a longer term value, a less risky opportunity in what is a volatile market as we're going through. And this is really something that is part of the DNA that what Mubadala does. I'd like to give a couple of examples, if you allow me. When the global crisis just started, this is in February, it was the early days, but our engine MRO business, Sanad Aerotech, announced the creation of a JV and a partnership with Ethiopian Airlines, which is our step into Africa. Similarly, when we were at the peak of the pandemic, Strata Manufacturing, which is a composite aerostructures manufacturing entity under Mubadala's portfolio, announced a strategic partnership with Honeywell, by way of which we started manufacturing N95 respirator masks. There was a requirement to do this as a result of what was going on, and a partnership led to the solution of pivoting of what we originally do to stand up and raise our hand to be counted. Another example of consolidation I would like to give is the recent creation of the Sanad Group under the Mubadala Aerospace portfolio. Here we saw clear synergies between our engine MRO business and the engine leasing business, and therefore consolidating the two in the form of a group, leading to synergies which would ultimately result in benefits to our customers. So I think going forward, we're going to see more of a trend towards smaller M&A activity, consolidation of players in what is a volatile market. I do also think that investment trends will be have a greater focus, if you like, on knowledge transfer, attaining new capabilities, and to unlock the latest emerging technologies, which I know we're going to speak about a little bit later on. I think the pandemic, if anything, it's taught all of us and aerospace companies that we need to be far more resilient than what we have been in the past, less dependent on a global supply chain, but trying to develop local talent, technologies, which are ever so important going forward.
Well, thank you very much, Amir. Jay, we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm very proud to represent Collins Aerospace on the call today. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what Amir was saying, and I'd like to even just touch on some points that you made, Dan, in the opening. You know, I think as an industry, if we look back over the last 100 years, you know, we started off, you know, with wooden biplanes, and now we're reaching outer space. So, you know, our industry is, I'd say, accustomed to a tremendous amount of innovation and tackling big problems. And, you know, not that we haven't tackled any big problems recently. I think, you know, we mentioned the 9/11 effects on the aerospace industry. The 2008 financial crisis was obviously a difficult time for commercial airlines as well. And so obviously COVID is a big challenge for us. And I think some of the statistics that Amir mentioned, I mean, it's absolutely devastating to think, you know, one day you're, you know, comparing one year to the other, you have 90% perhaps decline in the volume of business. So it's definitely going to be tough, and it's going to force a lot of changes, I agree, in the industry and the shape of the industry. With that said, I mean, in fact, there was already quite a bit of consolidation happening before COVID. And in fact, I'm a proud piece of some of that, right? Because in 2019, UTC acquired Rockwell Collins, which I was a part of. And so I got to witness that firsthand. And then actually earlier this year, actually in April, UTC then merged with Raytheon to form Raytheon Technologies. And what I can say from being part of that and being, let's say, on the inside looking out is, you know, despite the challenges the industry is facing right now, I think, you know, like the consolidation that I've gone through, just the breadth of technology that we have, and the way we're able to look at the problem sets in front of us and put together solutions, it's really amazing. And so, I mean, despite the fact that we're in a really tough spot right now, I feel that, you know, we're well positioned to come out of this ahead. And I think, you know, as Amir was mentioning, other consolidation, other partnerships will be formed to address the challenges that we face today. And just like over the last 100 years, I think we'll rise to the occasion. And, you know, of course, it will be interesting to look back, you know, on the next century and look back and say, you know, what did we accomplish during the second 100 years of flight? So it is going to be an interesting time. But I think we're in a good position to move forward.
Let's extend the conversation a little bit. Thank you, Jay and Amir. That was very informational, very helpful. One of the big changes we see in the post-COVID world is the move to greater and greater use of the digital capabilities and the digital business models. How do you see that change the use of the digital business models? How do you see that changing the aerospace industry, affecting and driving revenue generation, efficiency, and improving overall sector performance? And Amir, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks again, Dan. Look, digital business models is not a new concept. I mean, I recall being on a panel in 2016 at the Global Aerospace Summit that happened in Abu Dhabi, and we were talking about a similar topic at the time. I think what's happened as a result of the global crisis that we've seen post the pandemic is this is very much going to act like a catalyst. It's going to accelerate the implementation. And digital business models are of particular importance to the aviation aerospace industry. But I want to drill down or like to speak a little bit more about the MRO industry. It tends to be labor intensive, but solutions such as digitalization, predictive analytics, predictive artificial intelligence will lead to efficiencies, and these are tools that some of our assets or companies under the aerospace portfolio are adopting. For example, digitalization in the form of paperless work instruction and voice control methodologies is something that's currently being implemented by Sanad Aerotech on the shop floor. Instead of traditional, say, capturing of processing and inputting of notes. And this was made possible by the adoption of paperless systems on the shop floor, as well as smart digital tools and e-signatures. That's a great example of something that currently is being done. Now, I wouldn't say it kickstart as a result of what's happened as post-COVID. It was an initiative that they had been looking into over the last 18 months or so, but definitely the current climate accelerated the implementation of those methodologies. Another example I'd like to give is predictive artificial intelligence, where the idea is to detect faults in engines prior to them occurring. Predictive analytics is being used, which eventually will roll into predictive maintenance to help the engine MRO division. Furthermore, RFID, there are hundreds of different parts in an engine, and it becomes pretty difficult to track all of them. Each part has now got an RFID tag, and it allows to be able to basically track each and every part through the process. And if anything, it helps avoid inefficiency and potential leakages. 3D printing, not quite necessarily digital business model, but it's still one of the fourth industrial revolution tools or technologies being talked about. Tool fixtures have been 3D printed, as well as a engine part. Now, it's a very small engine part for an industrial rotary engine, but it's a start. So we're moving towards adopting more of these technologies. But I think one of the examples which I would like to share, which is very relevant to, I would say, linking it to technology and the current climate or the current crisis, is wearable solutions. This is something both Strata Manufacturing and Sanad Aerotech have implemented over the past few months, where a technician on the shop floor is able to engage with engineers or engineering staff, as well as external teams, without the requirement of face-to-face physical presence. During COVID, as you can imagine, this has been extremely valuable. Not only does it ensure the protection and safety of the individuals by maintaining social distancing, but it's also helped us, mitigate the negative impact in terms of productivity levels and meet the requirements of the business. I'd conclude by saying digitalization of the industry is also going to enable investors to make more informed decisions, but it will be based on data-driven insights. I recall 3 to 4 years ago, I made a statement that the jury is still out there in terms of the cost-benefit analysis of all of these tools. Well, I think now there's no choice. These tools are being implemented, and the commercial benefits of those have been accelerated, and an investor will be very easily see the efficiency, productivity level improvements with transparency, as well as be able to see if latest digital tools and technologies are being implemented in order for someone to remain competitive.
Thank you, Amir. Jay, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think MRO is certainly an area, and manufacturing is another area that we can talk about. But I think what I'd like to just focus on a little bit is more on the passenger side. And I think to put it in the context of the COVID-19 crisis, what can we do to help passengers feel better about returning to travel? And I think the way that digitization can play into all of that is by leveraging all the data that we have. And a little bit to what I was kind of mentioning before, every single process that we undergo, from like checking in to scheduling the cruise, the catering, the baggage, security checks, all of that today, all of that data is there. And if we can harness that data and then use things like artificial intelligence and other autonomous processes, we can streamline the passenger flow. We can maintain the social distancing, and in fact just bring more efficiency to the industry. So I think one of the key things is going to be able to leverage that big data in ways that we haven't done before, and then in fact begin to redefine some of the processes and just the way we go about um, uh, the whole experience of travel from the moment you think about a trip to actually, being in your destination. And then, again, if we look at this from the angle of the defense side of the industry, and as well, even before COVID, looking at all the possibilities of more seamlessly integrating all the information that we have to kind of create a connected battle space where there's a much better flow of real-time information and a more secure communications amongst the allies. These are things that I think, as we continue to develop the digitalization of our industry, that customers will just, see a tremendous improvement in their operational efficiency and in their effectiveness.
Well, thank you, Jay. I know even in our own AIAA world, we have seen how this new digital model has changed us from a people only get together at conferences, et cetera, to a whole new set of tools that we use to keep that engagement up and to make the connections, similar to Amir's model with the technician on the floor being able to use the tools to get to that engineer or whatever he needs to follow to keep the workflow going. So we're seeing it across the board, and it's important for us all. So
and I think, excuse me, but I think it had started before, but things like COVID, it's provided a little bit of a catalyst to accelerate some of that activity, right? That, like you said, it was there before, but now, Zoom was there. We were using it before, but not as dependent on it. And now it's become normal. So more and more, I think we'll see these digital tools becoming a part of our basic use and not supplementing what we used to maybe do and, with other processes.
You're exactly right. This has been an accelerant more than anything. Which is actually feeding us right into the next topic, or to maybe dive into that a little bit deeper, is how do you see the uptake on the digitalization and the acceleration due to this crisis, from a budget constraint perspective, from a financial perspective? How do you see this playing out over the next 12, 18, 24 months? And whoever would like to go first.
I don't mind going first on. Thanks, Jay. Look, I think we've repeated this before, but COVID-19 has accelerated digital transformation in all sectors, and aerospace has not been immune to this. I do think capital deployment of the next 12 months will focus on addressing key technical issues with aircraft and engine introductions. But the COVID-19 crisis has also given us an opportunity to perhaps pause and reassess needs and where best to deploy digital technologies. Of course, there's likely to be a scrutiny on capital deployments in the current economic climate, but that does not necessarily mean that new capital will not be invested. In fact, if anything, the efficiencies and value add of digital tools make them even more attractive than before. I do think there is also other areas where we're going to see capital deployment, which perhaps we did not see. For example, and I think Jay touched on this earlier on about passenger experience, the need for frequent interior refurbishment to cope with passenger demands, especially with social distancing measures in place for the next foreseeable future, or the next unknown foreseeable future. That's going to be taking up significant amount of capital deployment that would be available. So in summary, I think acceleration is inevitable. It's going to happen. Will there be a scrutiny? Of course, we're going through a tough time. But if anything, it will just allow us to, I think, reassess the priorities and implement capital deployment into, I would say, more burning areas or more pressing areas as opposed to others.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think prioritization is really the theme here. I can maybe talk about a couple of examples. We're actually proud to be part of the Dubai-based Aviation X Lab, which is a partnership between us, Emirates, Airbus, Thales, and GE. And it was formed actually to look at, let's say, the longer term challenges of the aerospace industry. And we were running moonshots, to tackle big problems like carbon neutral industry in the years ahead. But what we've been able to do is reprioritize and adapt to run a challenge to look at, what we call traveler well-being. And it's to try and help accelerate, technologies that are already out there or just about out there that we can bring into the aerospace industry and help make people feel better and safer about coming back to flight. And so that's obviously something that wasn't the priority before, but given the crisis, we reprioritize, we adapt, and we try to leverage that to create solutions that are relevant now. And so that's one example. I think the other example is, we were of course working on, and lots of folks in the industry were working on things like biometrics, being able to check your touchless bag check-in, other things like this to help you pass through security, that kind of thing. And now what we're starting to see is, maybe those projects were being planned by certain airports around the world, but now they're finding ways to pull those projects up and begin implementing some of this technology, this touchless technology now, because there's a need for it. So I mean, we see both of those things happening. And there are quite a few other areas of technology that we were working on, and now we just want to pull forward to help set us on the right growth trajectory as we come out of the crisis.
Yeah, I think there will be lots of challenges, and we'll be learning new things along the way as we work ourselves through all of this. How do you see the companies needing to prepare for these opportunities? And when I say companies, actually organizations. Jay, you've touched on the security side of things and the passenger experience. How are all the organizations involved? How do they need to prepare for the opportunities and all the challenges that come with the digitalization? And are there new areas of the business that this will open up? Jay, you want to go first on that one?
Well, yeah, I mean, for sure, it's opening up new areas. Like I said, it's accelerating a lot of the integration of like the passenger experience. And I think as Amir alluded to, it's also driving innovation in the MRO sector and in the manufacturing. And, at the same time, we mentioned the very beginning of this that, we as an industry, we need to be more resilient and come out of this stronger. And I think, some of the projects that we were working on even before COVID need to stay still at the forefront so that the industry does emerge stronger. And, another example of that, and I think it ties well into this digitalization theme, is, an initiative that we've had for a while, which is focusing on electric flight. So it's another way to ensure the industry is efficient in the future, that it's more sustainable, more environmentally friendly, and will be here for the long term. So I think in addition to all the adaptations that we've had to go through in the last 6 months, we still need to keep focused on long term. What does it take to have a solid, robust, resilient aerospace industry as we move ahead?
Just to add to what Jay said, I mean, first and foremost, the industry has never stood still. We continue to evolve, we continue to adapt on new challenges that are thrown around us. And I think an area of focus where I see businesses will be evolving or adapting is a renewed investment focus on innovation to meet changing their customer expectations. I also do think there has to be an effort to focus on workflow process and limit person-to-person interaction and contact, relying more on automation. There'll be, I gave an example earlier on about the technician on the shop floor who's able to communicate with the outer world, limiting face-to-face contact. I think there's going to be more of a reliance on automation, and that's where entities need to be ready to invest and move towards. Another area would be people development, enhancing the skills of the current workforce to be able to use these digital tools. It's a change, and change takes time to adapt, and it requires investing in human capital in order to train people being able to use these new tools. And the final example I would give is changes to supply chain, whereas historically reliance was on a global supply chain, but perhaps we are going to see a bit of this reduced to be developing local manufacturing and innovation as opposed to relying solely on global supply chain and innovation. But in general, I think all companies have got a need to demonstrate agility during the pandemic and all this testing time, and the need to evolve and change as the requirement is going forward.
And as you guys, that's all very good. A question occurred to me while each of you were speaking is, how do you feel from your respective positions the aerospace and defense sector is doing relative to other industries, other sectors? Are we leading? Are we staying up with the latest? Or how do you have a sense for that at all?
Yeah, I think it's difficult to really comment on that, because I do feel that, travel, tourism, and therefore our commercial side of our business is so impacted by the crisis. It's really devastating for us at this point. But that said, I think all the things we spoke about earlier around improving like the passenger performance, or whether it be improving efficiency in MRO or additive manufacturing, I think from those perspectives, we are leading the way at tackling some really big problems, just leading the way in the development of some of these new artificial intelligence solutions, bringing all this data together. So I think we are leading the way, despite the fact that we're probably the most, or one of the most hurt segments of the market from the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, if it's a hard question to compare, because certain industries are less hit, others are harder hit, and we're one of the hardest hit industries. But despite all of that, the few examples we've just talked in the last half an hour of I guess the resilience the industry has shown, and moving towards new solutions in order to keep the ball rolling, has given is good enough example to show that we have been leading, and we've been reacting to it, and we've been proactive in terms of finding solutions.
Good, excellent. Given where we are these days, and how do you see the digitalization? Will that help us recover? Amir, you talked earlier about a 3 to 5 years before we get back to the pre-COVID levels of travel. Do you see digitalization helping us make that happen maybe even quicker? Or given the fact that we've got all kinds of external issues that we have to respond to, how do you see the digitalization helping us get back to travel as quickly as we can? I know personally I'm looking forward to it, and my wife is too, looking forward to me to go start traveling quickly. Can this all help?
Look, I think that's a great question, but it's a very tough question to answer, because I think the honest truth is no one really knows. It's all dependent on not only when the vaccine is available, but even when the vaccine is available, how long does it take to deploy the vaccine across the leading populations of the world? So it depends on a combination of things. But what I would say is that technological solutions, including video conferences, have obviously helped bolster communication in the current climate. Now, in the absence of being able to meet, what the three of us are doing today is a classic example. I mean, we normally would have physically been in a venue where there'd be 500-600 delegates, and we'd be sitting on a stage on a panel, but we've made it work by using a digital solution. But if you talk to many business people, there's nothing quite like seeing their clients in person, especially when building relationships, you know, hashing out those finer details on a complex negotiation, or even just a simple handshake, which goes a long way in creating bonds and working relationships. But having said that, someone personally, I'm giving my example, I was very skeptic about the thought of, say, having a board meeting remotely or having an investment committee remotely. Well, we've made it work in the last 6 months, and it has worked. So I think it is going to transform the way business travel is impacted going forward. I read a report recently where there was an indication that OPEX costs have reduced up to 15% as a result of the lack of travel that's going on. And I know there's probably a lot of CFOs around the world which are looking into that number quite eagerly. I do also think that going forward, perhaps the cost of travel may even increase and make business travel more expensive. And the reason I say that is the requirements of greater sanity at airports, plus planes to maintain social distancing and having less volume, may result in an implication that results in higher travel. So it really asks the question that we do really need to think about using these tools going forward. And I personally do think that there will be a less demand on business travel compared to what it was in the past.
Yeah, I think, like you said, no one really knows, and there's so many, let's say, competing interests. All right, I mean, most companies are in a tough position because of the crisis. So restricting travel probably would have happened even if you could travel, right? Just because budget pressures are there, and even for the next couple of years as we recover, budget pressures will still be there to be a little bit probably more. Have a little bit more control over when do people travel, and then I think like we mentioned, you know, we are making things like Zoom work for us. It's not quite the same. I 100% agree as seeing somebody face to face and building that relationship, and especially when you have large groups, maybe international groups with different languages involved. You know, it is more tedious. It's more frustrating, you know, to have some of those collaborative sessions that you can do much easier face to face. So there'll always be a driver there, but I think that's why everyone is so cautious on, you know, trying to predict how long the recovery will take, because there are so many different competing interests out there, and business travel, it will be one of those hit. I mean, I think it's similar to the discussion of, you know, do we really need as much office space as we have in the past? I mean, we've seen many large companies, CEOs and CFOs come out and say, hey, maybe you guys can just work from home forever. You know, don't ever plan on coming back to the office. You know, that's one extreme. You know, most, I think, or not most, but others are, of course, you know, trying to bring their employees back to the office. So it's the exact same kind of dynamic. You know, how much business can we conduct over Zoom versus face to face? So obviously that'll have an impact on when the business travel fully recovers. So it's difficult to say.
Well, Jay, thank you very much, Jay and Amir. This has been very thought-provoking, particularly in these times of having to do things this new way, or bringing forward a way that was available. We've just accelerated it. Any final thoughts from each of you as we've had this discussion? Any final points you'd like to reiterate, or any additional thoughts you'd like to add? And Jay, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, what I just really want to end on a positive note. And I mean, I think, you know, when I was starting off my career in the aerospace industry 25 years ago, or maybe even before that, when I was in the university, you know, I was always excited by the innovation and the solutions that the industry brought forward. And, you know, I think now more than ever, with all the digitization, all the technology that we have at our fingertips, I couldn't be more excited. Of course, COVID-19 is a terrible bump in the road, but like we mentioned, it will only accelerate some of that development that we're working on. And I'm sure we'll emerge as an industry stronger than we were before. And you know, the passenger experience will be even better than it was before. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the future. So yeah, that's how I'd like to end it. Is I feel really strongly about the resilience of our industry.
Amir?
Similar sentiment, Dan and Jay. I mean, there's obviously a lot of negativity in the last 6 months, and yes, we are going through tough times. But you know, guess what? People have gone through tough times in the past as well. So we will get over this, and I think we should look at the opportunities that you know this pandemic has given us, which is acceleration of things that perhaps were not going at the pace that we desired or we wanted. There's a lot of talk about fourth industrial revolution and the various different streams that come under fourth industrial revolution. I think the positive I take from all of this is that previously there was these were probably a lot of presentations lying on somebody's desk to go to the various decision makers to obtain budgets. Well, this has actually pushed those presentations through to the decision makers, and we're seeing a lot of them being implemented. So it's exciting times. The industry is evolving. Most of the players in the industry are evolving and will continue to evolve with time and be resilient. And as we touched on earlier, lead by an example.
I think I come away with this discussion and the experience throughout my aerospace industry career very similar. It's we have a challenge. We are facing the challenge, and we will come out stronger for this because this industry is always innovating, always coming up with new solutions to help society for the future. And I think you can see that this is going on a daily basis. We have our travel number challenges, but you know, over time we'll get back. And I think I'm very hopeful, very positive that this innovation will continue to work through, and we will all be in a better place. We're even seeing that at AIAA ourselves with our ability to do things like this and reach out and have discussions with people that normally actually wouldn't have occurred because of the travel requirement or the travel hurdle. And now they can do this. And then it makes, when they do get together in person, it makes that an even better, more rich engagement. So all good. And Jay and Amir, I just want to, again, thank you so much for your contributions to the industry, your contributions to this discussion. It's been very thought-provoking, very informative, and I just want to say thank you for taking this opportunity and helping us look at how the industry can grow through digitalization and move on into the post-pandemic world. So with that, again, one last thank you, and thank you to the audience for watching this. And I look forward to hopefully one day meeting each of you in person, wherever that may be.
Yeah, me too.
Pleasure.
Thank you again for having us.
Thank you for having us. Pleasure.